All right. So let's see. We'll wait a couple of minutes for people to join. Hopefully everyone's got a cup of tea, coffee, whatever caffeinated or non-caffeinated drink.
Stocked up on coffee.
Amazing. Okay. So I'm actually just going to wait for the team behind the scenes just to let us know when we've got kind of a good amount of people, but I'm actually going to start kicking things off in a minute, really. So actually, Emma, you're already an hour ahead of us, aren't you?
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock in Sweden.
Yeah.
You guys just had breakfast and I'm ready for one.
Awesome. Okay, well, I am going to kick things off and make sure that the presentation is viewable. You can hear my dog in the background. Apparently he's decided to just start snoring. Timing is always his forte. Okay, and just to check, everyone can see the slide about the broken rung. Just getting used to. Okay, brilliant. Just getting used to the view. So let's kick things off. People may join as and when, which is absolutely fine. But we have a ton of talking to do, and the sooner we can get going, the better. So for those that have joined, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. We know things are incredibly crazy at the moment, juggling multiple different things on top of your job. So we really appreciate that. Just a couple of housekeeping things. So we will be recording this, and obviously you've registered, so we'll be sending that recording out to you afterwards. Just a couple of days, probably some editing to go through before you receive that. Please ask questions all the way through. Don't feel like you have to kind of store them up. We have an amazing team that are collating those questions, and then they'll be sending them through to us so that we can try and work through them. We've allowed a good amount of time for that as well. For those of you that do ask questions, we will be sending you some work from home kits. I think they've got kind of colouring books and other treats and things like that. So in case you didn't already feel motivated to ask advice from this amazing group of ladies, that's another little tidbit for you. So the reason why we're here today, at Looker, we have a really strong network of ladies. We regularly come together to discuss key research around women in tech and just the tech industry in general. Self-promotion has definitely been a really big topic, and particularly around the notion of the broken rung. So historically, a lot of the research has been about, that top of the ladder and the inequality between the male and female balance. But more recently, in the 29 report, there was this notion of the broken rung, which, is really stopping women from making that initial step up in their career path. And of course, that impacts further up the ladder. So today we've got some amazing ladies who've navigated that tech environment, and really excited to have them introduce themselves, and we'll kick off the conversation. So with that, I will pass over to Sonia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you can hear me fine. My name is Sonia Barlow. I am a social entrepreneur, diversity consultant, podcast host, and kind of all-round public speaker. My story really starts with my graduation in 2015, and coming out a university student, thinking, do you know what, I don't want to be poor. So I kind of just took the first job that came my way. Unfortunately, that job was extremely missold. And so I took the second job that came my way, and I ended up working in the tech, data, and analytics industry. Throughout that period, I learned so much, especially what we can do when we analyze data to understand what is going on in the world around us. So I worked for a company called dunnhumby that owned Tesco Club Cards. So every day I was analyzing 20 million Club Card users, and it was awesome. But throughout that experience, when I moved from my second to third role, I very much realized that I didn't have any real friends, and I didn't have a sense of community. And what that meant is not just friends that you can go out and, brunch or kind of lunch with, but it's people that you've really talked to about career and progression and how to make yourself better and how to progress and how to promote yourself within the workplace and outside of the workplace. At the same time, I had no social media because I was living the life of digital detoxing before it was even a thing, thinking, you know what, mentally I can't hack it, so I don't need to be on it. 2 years ago, so May 2018, through complete frustration and mental health issues and a lot of loneliness, I founded a brunch club called Like-Minded Females. It was just a brunch club to bring women together to talk about challenges and progression and work. Unfortunately, that brunch element of the club didn't quite work, so no one actually showed up to the first 3 brunches. But what did work was this idea that there's clearly a problem and a grey area that hasn't been solved. Things in London are so expensive and inaccessible, especially for young professionals, graduates, or those who are in low income-based jobs. And I was feeling worse about myself. Long story short, through complete kind of perseverance and hard work and failing more times than I can count, today I'm sitting here having kind of transitioned and transformed that brunch club into a global not-for-profit social enterprise. So we've transitioned from like-minded females to like-minded friends at LMF Network across all socials. We have a global community of over 25,000, upskilled over 2,000, delivered over 110 workshops, worked with 50 client partners, and throughout that experience, I've been fortunate enough to deliver 2 TED Talks and a multiple amount of keynotes. And ultimately, our mission, vision, and kind of motive in life is to enable and educate women and minoritized groups into tech, business, and entrepreneurship by providing them the skills they need to increase confidence, to lead their best authentic lives, and most importantly, to live that value-based skills, purpose-led life that they need, rather than kind of just following the flow. So that's kind of where I am at, and that's why I am here today.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Emma.
Hi everyone, Emma Storbacka is my name. I'm the CEO of a consultancy in the data and tech space called Avals, based in Stockholm, with 110 employees. And I'm actually sort of a marketing and leadership major from university and did a few years in management consulting until I then realized that I need to be sort of in an environment where sort of progressing faster in your career, taking more ownership, and all of that is sort of welcomed. And I've been at Avals since for 8 years now. And in the beginning, I kind of headed up our B2B sort of business, trying to figure out what B2B businesses are supposed to do with sort of adding more automation, adding more data into how they do sales and marketing. Then I moved to Sweden and to set up a new office in Sweden. That's been fairly successful. We're about 50 people in Sweden at the moment. Sorry, I forgot to say I'm Finnish, so I actually started out in Helsinki, and 5 years ago moved to Sweden. Then I was appointed CEO of the Swedish business, did that for a couple of years, and then about 2 years ago was appointed CEO of the group, working to sort of transform large enterprises in the area of data and automation in marketing, sales, and customer experience. And sort of being a marketing major, but in the area of tech, it sort of has its own challenges, but I've always been sort of super interested in anything that has to do with digital transformation or sort of the future. and also sort of being in an environment with a lot of engineering or engineers or people with sort of more technical background really excites me. I think that the diversity of kind of bringing business and technology together is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. And then Sarah.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sarah Lipscomb and I'm head of data at Holiday Extras, where I have worked for 19 years now. So I graduated in a management science degree, and I got my first job at Holiday Extras as a business information executive, and I've been really lucky to be able to grow my career at Holiday Extras at the same time as being able to have my family, which has been really good. And so during my time at Holiday Extras, I started out really in the MI function, working on forecasting and budgeting, and more recently moved into data, setting up a data team and creating a data science function at Holiday Extras, which is something we hadn't had before. But in recent years, I really started noticing that the conferences I was attending were really male heavy, and I was wondering where all the women in data were. So I sort of came across a group called Women in Data, which is apparently where all the women are. And I found it a really great network, found it somewhere that I was much more comfortable with, finding people that I could connect with. And it really inspired me to kind of find something more local. Based in Kent, I didn't always want to be travelling to London when we could travel to London. And so I'm inspired to set up my own network called Kent Women in Tech. And it was really to set up something that local women could come along to in an evening and fit in around everything else that was going on in their life. But what we've been able to do in the last year is create a community of women that are able to connect with each other. And we've seen some really good connections come off the back of it. So that's me.
Brilliant, thank you. So that's the kind of lineup today. I was saying earlier, I feel like a game show host when I do these things, but there's no spinning wheel coming out. So I think we should just get straight into it. We've had some amazing conversations in the run up to this. The title is obviously about self-promotion in times of change. And I think really what we've all come to talk about is that just self-promotion, particularly amongst women, is something that needs to be spoken about. So Emma, would you be able to kind of kick us off with what your thoughts and feelings are towards self-promotion? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, sure. And I have to say, I'm not maybe the best person to start this off because, when we started discussing having this panel and the topic of self-promotion, I was like, is that something we really want to be talking about? And then once we started discussing it amongst this group, I sort of realized myself that there is sort of an inbuilt problem of women maybe not daring to talk about your achievements or what you're proud of, or in a way making your work visible. Self-promotion has this sort of very, negative connotation of like, is this about sort of being on social media and trying to be a business influencer? And that's not what it's about. It's really about, for me at least, kind of making sure that your achievements sort of speak for themselves. But if nobody knows about them, then they don't speak for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Sonia, you had some really interesting points around, how you have to operate as a business in self-promotion. Could you talk us through that?
Yeah, completely. I really do relate to the points that have been made before, especially when you start the working life. And I mean, the corporate ladder, there is a bias when it comes to how a woman promotes versus how a man promotes. A lot of the time, if a woman goes out and acknowledges her successes or shares what she's been great at and proud of, it's, hey, you're boasting, you're being aggressive, you're telling someone too much about yourself. I remember I was actually in my first job, I won an award. So I won the Rising Star for We Are the City. and a male counterpart ran a charitable marathon for, it was a charity marathon for, like, you know, let's say 10K, I don't remember the exact distance. And at the same time, I was asking, so in order to win the award, you had to share with your company because they had to kind of vote for you, right? So it's one of those polls. And for him to go through the marathon, he had to ask people to donate. But I was the one who got told off because it wasn't charitable, or, oh, why did you send an email to the whole kind of commercial team mentioning that you have won this award and then you need them to vote? Whereas the guy who ran the marathon, because it was charitable, actually got applauded in a team meeting with the commercial team to say, really great, really exciting that you're doing this for charity. We can't all wait to donate to you. Even that mindset shift, and this was only 4 years ago, right, is what self-promotion comes down to. It's, yes, there is definitely gender bias, but before there's gender bias, there's just personality traits and bias that comes with traits. So the point being, a masculine trait is more when you are more logical, when you are assertive, when you are slightly more confident in yourself. And a feminine trait is one where you are more emotionally intelligent or softer in your approach. So when it comes to self-promotion, the perspective is, and the perception that we've placed upon these roles is, when you are self-promoting, you are living in a masculine kind of trait or personality trait, and so therefore you must be a man. And that's not necessarily what fits, and that doesn't fit the bill. And we spoke about, you know, the broken rung at the beginning. Well, actually, one of the reasons, and one of the most common reasons why women aren't in the roles that men are, is because we are absolutely terrible at self-promoting ourselves. We are terrible at going into a room and saying, hey, well, I've been here X amount of years or X amount of months. These were my job description. These are the KPIs. These are the successes. This is the impact I've made. And I know my value and worth, and I know I can go outside to get something better. Whereas we would just kind of take it and say, you know what, you're okay. Or if the manager says you need more time, you're like, yeah, that's completely fine. But when I left working in corporate and I started working on my own business, I had to consider myself as a brand, meaning I am my own business. People buy into people in my own story. So if I didn't champion myself and cheerlead myself and share all the great stuff that I'm doing on social media, especially on social media, LinkedIn and Instagram being the two main forums, well, how is then someone meant to know who I am? There's 7 billion people. There's 7 million people. There's 7 million people on LinkedIn, for example. You have 8 seconds to make an impression. If you are going for a project or a promotion or a any kind of new event, why would someone pick you? But ultimately, when it comes to self-promotion, you have to take a step back and think, you know, what do I want from this? 2, what is my purpose? And 3, why should someone engage with you? And you have to make sure that you are in the best position you possibly can be, so the other person has no choice but to pick you as the best person for the job.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. And actually, Sarah had some really interesting points on this about self-promotion shouldn't be based on personality traits, or, you know, what you were saying, it's something that everyone should do. I mean, Sarah, would you be able to kind of expand on that for us, what you were in our discussions previously about personality and authenticity?
Sorry, first mute fail of the day. I think I sort of realised that I'm not going to be the person that is going to be standing up there and shouting in people's faces to let people know what I've done and what I've achieved. But to Emma's point, if you don't let people know what you've done, the great things you've achieved, and actually it can go unrecognised. So actually sort of there's that realisation that you do actually need to share what you're doing. But for me, I had to sort of work out how to do it in a way that was authentic to me, that was true to myself. So it did mean making small changes, but I had to do it gradually. It was things that I had to do that felt right for me, but at the same time were achieving the goal, which was for people to know what I'd achieved or what I was up to. So it's kind of getting that balance of kind of making sure people know what you're doing, but making sure that it feels right for you. Because I think for me, I couldn't do something that was outside of my personality type. So it's kind of getting the balance of the two, really.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And you also, I mean, all of you have sort of led teams, and you have, I guess, males and females on your teams. And have you spotted any nuances, tangible nuances, in how you've seen team members that report up to you self-promote, and what the impact has had?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily a male-female thing, because I've seen it in both ways, in male and females. But I think in terms of in times of change, and on which we're going through, and even if when companies going through a restructure or people looking for a promotion, I think it's those people that have got themselves known, their work known, and more visible will be thought of more quickly. They'll come to mind first. So I think I have seen firsthand where actually being visible in the work you're doing, being visible in what you've achieved. So to Emma's point, you have to have achieved something. You have to be credible in what you're doing. But getting out there and making sure people know will get your name thought about ahead of somebody else. So I can see that, in times of, looking for promotion or looking for jobs, then actually getting your name out there is really important.
Mm-hmm. And that sort of takes us really nicely into hearing from all of you about some recommendations for self-promotion. I mean, Emma, could you kick us off with that?
Yeah, maybe just if I could first comment on the previous point here. I think, being a consultancy, of course, what everybody sort of is striving for is to be picked for projects or recommended to clients and so on. And I see sort of a really big difference, for instance, in the way that you sort of put your previous work forward and say that, hey, I did these great things with the client and they were super happy, or, we learned this new thing and we implemented whatever piece of technology or whatever. And it's kind of surprisingly hard, not only to get ladies, but kind of maybe actually all of our employees to actually, and it might be sort of a cultural thing, it might be sort of a Nordic thing that you don't want to brag, you don't want to bring forward what you've been doing because you might come off as sort of being braggy. But unless you're, the work that our employees do, they do it with the clients, often at the client site. So I, for example, when I'm out speaking to a client, pitching a new project, I have no idea about what has actually happened sort of in the previous delivery. And if you're never bringing that up, and if you feel uncomfortable bringing that up, then that's a very sort of bad thing for your career. And that might feel even sort of unfair. And sometimes I think in these sort of female versus male self-promotion discussions, you almost get this sort of, it's unfair that we as ladies have to make sure that we are heard. I don't think that's the case. I think it's also about just sort of accepting the rules of the game. And it's sort of, as you said, 7 million people on LinkedIn. I mean, how are they supposed to find you if you're not out there? And exactly the same thing goes, in our company. How am I supposed to know who is really great at doing what if nobody ever told me, or I was never sort of, and it's sort of partly, of course, on the responsibility of the environment, the work environment, to make sure that good performance is rewarded and kind of lifted up. But also, I think it's in everybody's own interest and also responsibility to make sure that whatever great things you've done actually are known and get recognized. And sometimes I think, from my own perspective, and this is maybe going into the recommendation, or we kind of coined this term of take the emotion out of self-promotion earlier when we were prepping, because quite often I think, especially junior females have this tendency of thinking that it's unfair, and it's not unfair. It's sort of very, very clear in a way, I think, what needs to be done, and sort of getting rid of the emotion and more focusing on sort of what are the great things you're doing, and are people aware. very simple and very sort of, in a way, objectively measurable. Like, are you doing those two things?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in there. I completely echo the point. When I started working 5 years ago, I think it was that mentality of, why do I have to do this? Why does somebody not else have to do this? Why is it so terrible and struggle? But actually throughout this journey, I realized that a lot of these barriers we place, especially as women, we place on ourselves. No one else has actually placed you in that box, and no one has caged you to say, this is what you do versus what you don't do. It's what we choose to see and what we choose to replicate, given what we see around us. And, you know, a really simple example is there's not a lot of women in tech, and there's not a lot of women of color in tech. If I was to turn down every opportunity because I didn't see someone who looked like me, then I couldn't be that change maker. And so for me, it's always been really important to go and break that mold and to break that change. But I want to kind of just talk slightly about even the words that we've used, right? When we say self-promotion, we've unconsciously used words like boasting and bragging. Actually, we're not doing any of that. We are just stating the facts and the successes that we have achieved, and we're doing it in a disciplined manner using the forums and mediums that we've been given. LinkedIn is a tool for you to promote yourself as if it was your CV. Your CV is a tool for you to share to a hiring manager for you know, whom you have less than 10 seconds to make an impression. Instagram is a place you can run your portfolio. I've delivered 2 TED Talks through self-promoting myself. And those who don't know, when you deliver a TED Talk, you know, there's 2,500 people who do it per year in the world, and you have to go through a 5-stage interview. I didn't have to go through any interview because both of them, someone saw my profile online and the way I was promoting myself and approached me. So, you know, that saying of 80% of your opportunities come through your network, yes, they do. But your network needs to know what you are looking for and who you are and what your purpose is and what your goal is in order to give you and deliver those opportunities. And the only way they can is if we stop thinking about self-promotion as boasting or bragging, and we just think about it from a logical perspective of, I had this KPI to me, I've met it, I've smashed it, this is the success. What do I do next?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, after you.
Sorry, I was just going to pick up on Sonia's point about the networking bit, because completely agree. Sort of, you know, getting out there and sort of networking people is really important. But equally, I think it's one of those things that isn't actually that natural to people. A lot of people, I think, sort of shiver at the thought of going up and talking to strangers and small talk. And so I think actually, sort of to your point, the sort of question about kind of, you know, how do you go about doing it? Sort of, for me, kind of, I think you have to start somewhere. I think it's recognizing the need that you need to do it, and you have to just give it a go. Start somewhere, start small, but then kind of build it up. But sort of not doing it isn't gonna change anything. So by kind of recognizing you need to do it, and, you know, perhaps finding, for me, it was kind of finding a small meetup that was in a topic that I was comfortable with, and you know you're going to be comfortable talking to the people around you, which can give you the confidence to know that people are interested in what you're talking about and do want to hear about you, and then you can kind of build up to kind of the next bit. And completely echo Sonia's point about kind of opportunities that it brings you. I've come, you know, this opportunity, for example, and a number of other things that have come my way by being visible and being on LinkedIn or letting people know what I'm doing and what I'm about. So there's so many benefits to come from just giving it a go and not being quite so afraid of what might go wrong, because there's often very little downside.
And if I can pick up on that, I think, you know, the whole, you know, what does the world think about me? It goes, you know, in the small things, like why wouldn't somebody at Avos, for example, share the good feedback they got from the client, or you know, the good work they did? You know, it's the same feeling of, you know, what is everybody else going to think about me, as, you know, posting on LinkedIn or feeling that you're, you know, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but I do it because I know it's part of my job. If I'm not visible on LinkedIn, I'm not being a good leader for the people in the company, and I'm not being a an interesting employer for those sort of, especially female talent that we would want to have so much more of in the data analytics space. Very few of those out there. And in a way, I know it's hard, but then I have to do it. And again, sort of taking the emotion out of the self-promotion is really critical. And I think that's where we as women are harder on ourselves on sort of, am I really worth, is this thing that I did, is it good enough? Somebody else probably did something just equally good. Or what are these people at this networking event going to think about me if I go up and give a presentation on whatever we did last week or last month or last year? And sort of just realizing that it is hard for everyone and it's sort of scary for everyone. But also I think when it comes to practical, concrete tips is, be very clear on what good performance or good achievements look like. Because then if you have facts or you have sort of objective achievements that you can back your sort of arguments up with, and especially if you know that sort of it's not everybody who has done this type of projects or been a TEDx speaker, which I'm very envious of you for. And sort of, if you have those real things, then it's not boasting and bragging, then it's just sort of stating the facts, and then you can sort of lean back on that instead of sort of feeling that you just have to make stuff up. So, self-promotion where you're making stuff up, that's not what you should be doing, and that's not what the discussion is about, I hope.
No, absolutely. And I think everyone sort of touched on it. Allyship. I can never say this word. Allyship. The immediate thought is, okay, well, we need men to be our allies, but we had some really interesting conversations about women being allies for other women, and how to challenge those kind of negative connotations of self-promotion and actually help open doors and things like that. So, I mean, Sonia, I think you had some really good points around that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the term allyship, though it's not new by any means, it's coming to play a lot more. And so for those who don't know what allyship, it's not just a noun, it's a doing word. An ally is a sponsor and somebody who has the power or the privilege, and they allow you, or they enable you to kind of walk through the door with them. So an ally is someone who opens the door for you and gives you or provides you or supports you with an opportunity. Really, really kind of frankly and really briefly. The reason for this and the reason why it's so important is because not everyone looks and feels like you, so it's really difficult to get in there. If I use my own example as a young South Asian woman in technology who was extremely ambitious and, I'm sure everyone can tell, like, quite confident, and loudness is just a personality of mine. It's something I was born with. Not a lot of people can understand that because you don't see it every day. So for myself, it's always been allies, and allies predominantly in the shape of men and white senior men who have said, you know what, we like your spark, we like the results you drive, we want to help you with these opportunities. Here's an event or opportunity or workshop, we're going to take you there, but we're not going to speak on your behalf. And that's really important, as allies there to listen. Allies are then there to understand how they can support you, to enable opportunities and to take you through the door, but not to speak on your behalf. The rest of it is up to you. And allyship, when it comes to self-promotion, when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to progression inside the workplace and outside the workplace, is really important. But people can't be an ally without you being in a place that you can identify your goals and your purpose and the values and what you want to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months. Every instance of my promotion, from being in retail from the age of 17 to even now, has been because a man has opened the door for me and said, hey, we want to help you, right? It's not always been the women, but I think that comes back to the fact that women have just been socialized into competing with each other. And that's why community is so important. And that's why conversations like these and open conversations are so important. That's why it's important to know that there are communities you can join if you feel alone and if you feel isolated and you feel like you don't have the support. So the support can come your way and it can really help you. But ultimately, allyship is what we all should be doing on an everyday basis. It's not something that we should be doing now because we're ticking a box. Allyship really simply is, how can you help somebody else by listening to what they want to achieve and enabling them to get there?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm going to move us on to the Q&A, and I think that sort of plays into some of the questions that we've had, actually. So first question, this is for all the speakers. When you graduated from college, did you find there was great pressure to go straight into the workforce? So Sarah, would you like to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, but I guess the pressure was from myself. I don't think it was from anyone else, but I have to say I graduated and I just thought, well, I need to get a job. And I didn't really have another thought about that, but I don't think anyone was telling me, nobody was telling me to get a job. It was just something I thought, I've finished my degree. I now need to get a job, and I looked for a job that I could use my degree in, which is probably also not always that usual, but yeah, no, the only pressure was from me. It wasn't from anybody else.
Yeah, my experience was the same as Sonia's. Just before graduation, trying to find something, and it happened to be tech. But yeah, I mean, Emma, was there anything for you that you found to be pressuring?
I graduated during the sort of last, in 2009 and 10. That's when I started to look for a job, and the job market in Finland at the moment wasn't the best possible. So for me as well, it sort of felt like, getting experience now versus 2 years from now is going to be super valuable. And I would sort of advise anybody right now that kind of working instead of, I don't know what the options would be, but I think in times of sort of turbulence, getting experience, getting your work network built up is going to be pretty important. And I would sort of always, after having a degree, I would always kind of promote the kind of need for sort of getting real hands-on experience, especially when digitalization is moving so fast, and now with COVID even faster. So the stuff that you learn at school is quite likely not to really provide you any real value. However, you might get sort of deepen your sort of skills later on by kind of topping up your education, but sort of getting some real kind of feel for what work life looks like and what's going to be needed in the future is probably going to also set you on a better career path earlier, which then again has a positive impact on your entire career. And I'm a big fan of the sort of lean in thinking that the more and harder work you do early on in your career, easier all the rest is going to be, with family and so on.
Absolutely. So I want to ask this question. I think this is a great question. So a member of the audience has asked, sometimes general non-work conversation leads to the team knowing more about you and your approach. But this small talk among an all-male group becomes difficult. Do you have any tips around how to have that natural conversation without feeling left out? So Sonia,
I think that's such a great question. Thank you so much. I think it's a great question. And it's a question that I think no matter your age or your experience or your level in a company, you feel like you are a part of and you have experience at some point. The first thing I want to say is I think we overestimate sometimes the men in the room. The point I'm trying to make, or the people in the room, the point I'm trying to make is sometimes they just don't even know they're doing it. Like that really is sometimes where it starts from, is they don't even know that they're doing anything, or that it's excluding you, or that it turns out to be a difficult conversation because they are just having a conversation, right? So one of the kind of easier things to do is if you have a rapport with one of them, even in a small bit of rapport, take them to the side and let them know how you feel, or talk to them about, actually, the conversations make me feel slightly excluded. Is there any way to try and bring me in? And that's how you can help promote that allyship approach, at the same time educate others. Saying that, I'm not at all encouraging anyone to start watching the TV programs they're watching, or to watch the news that they're interested in. But the easiest way to enter a conversation is to make it quite topical. So really to focus on what's going on in the news right now, what's going in the workplace right now, and start from the workplace and bring it outwards. Talk about kind of exactly, to the point where we were making before about self-promotion, what are the KPIs being, what are the goals and successes? So work seems to be a common thread, and then you take it outwards. You don't have to fall into, so how's your family? How's your relationship? How's your personal life? Because not everyone's comfortable, nor should you be either.
Right.
But at the same time, please don't feel like, I think this is a common problem. Please don't feel like you have to be involved all the time in everything. If you're not comfortable, and if it happens to be an uncomfortable situation, you don't have to just be there.
Yeah. And that takes us into we've got so many good questions and we're not going to get through them all, but I really want to talk about this one. So off the back of that, how do you navigate the token woman situation versus being in a position based on merit? Emma, I feel like there's stuff you can help with here.
Yeah, we actually discussed in the prep call a bit as well on the sort of Nordic situation, where I would say, equality is very on a very good level, or at least in the sort of general perception, and especially in the tech space, it's very acknowledged that if you, for example, don't have any women on your, let's say, a panel like this, or when you're presenting your business or whatever, and you have kind of only men in the kind of picture with the team, people would actually sort of ask for forgiveness and say that I'm really sorry, we have tried really hard, but there is just not enough, female people in this space or whatever. And that, I think, is creating a little bit of the sort of token woman problem. However, I would say kind of mostly because of sort of the self-promotion thing being hard for many women, I would say most female leaders have actually earned that place for real. So I think there's very little problematic sort of token women appointments. Then of course, I mean, that being the case, of course you can self-promote in a sort of PR-y way, or you can sort of get the ghostwriter to do all of this epic stuff on LinkedIn, which makes you look like you're the kind of star of the world. And some are doing that, both in the Nordics and elsewhere, because where there is sort of a scarcity of female talent, also like we already heard. I mean, if you're the only one of your skin color and gender in your arena, it's very easy for you to become sort of known. And some are also, of course, taking advantage of that, which they should be. I mean, it's an opportunity world, and being brave and doing that, it's a great idea.
Absolutely.
I react very badly if somebody addresses me just with sort of, since you were a woman and we would want to have a female speaker at this event, could you please participate, for instance? Then I would kindly decline.
Absolutely. So we have so many more questions. We're not going to have time to go through them all, but we will address them and we'll respond to people after the event. So we have 1 minute left. I'm just going to do a quick push for a course that I actually went through. It's called I Am Remarkable, and it's run by an amazing team at Google. So as part of Next on Air, we're hosting a number of those I Am Remarkable workshops, and they'll be running through to October 28th. The follow-up email will contain a link with more information, and the option to register will be added to our wait list. So with the 1 minute left, can we do, can't do the maths, really quick maths, but a few seconds on one takeaway that people should do after this call?
Shall I start?
Please, thank you.
Yeah, I'd say get involved, and I really rate the Women in Data network. So if that's your area, follow them on LinkedIn, find out about them, get involved in some of their events, because they run a load of different type of events, and it's a really great network. And I've got a lot of different connections and support and a lot of different things out of it. So yeah, get involved in that network.
Great call out. And Emma, and then we'll do Sonia.
Take the emotion out of self-promotion. Focus on the great stuff that you're doing, and just make sure that people know. Then it doesn't sort of become such an emotional question.
Yeah. And Sonia.
And I guess for me, based on some of the questions that came into, think about where you want to be the next 18 months, 24 months, and and kind of work yourself backwards. And what that means is think about the 5 maximum things that you want to be known for. And those are what you're posting online. That is what you're talking about. Those are the events that you're entertaining and that you're attending, so that you can be within that circle. And of course, follow great people online. So similar to Women in Data, who I'm very close with, the LMF network, which I run, we run free events, 6 or 9 free workshops and events every month. And we have a mentorship scheme. So you can follow us on at LMF Network and myself at Sonia Barlow UK.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Hopefully everyone has taken at least 2 or 3 things away from this. We'll be sending a follow-up email, and that's it from us. So thank you all for joining, and speakers, thank you so much for the time that you've spent contributing.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.